Hey everybody, Father Warner here. We are in Wednesday of the 5th week of Lent. Our first reading is taken from the book of Daniel. I recommend you read the entire chapter 8. And our gospel is taken from John chapter 8, verse 31 to 42. I'm going to focus on the first reading. Now, for many of you who prefer or who would like to have the text version of my teaching, and I prefer my text versions too, go to pottypadre.com, that's P-O-T-T-Y padre.com. And I also have, I'm also on Instagram for young people. I try to do the same teaching in under a minute, and I cannot tell you how challenging that one gets. But for now, I want to focus on Daniel chapter 3. And I want to begin by saying this, that, we are always in admiration of young people who live the faith. I had a young man in St. Stephen's Parish, Noah by name, and he would always devoutly kneel and receive Holy Communion. I could see this didn't come from, something that he wanted to please or win the admiration of the world. It came from his very heart. So when young people live the faith, we are in admiration. Several saints we know also died for the Lord. We rightly glorify the martyrs, we should, but we should also look at the saints who never were martyred, but they lived for God. As someone once said, it's easier to die for the Lord than to live for the Lord. But our first reading today tells us of three young men who did both. They lived and were also put to death for the Lord. And I'm talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, these three young men, we know from the book of Daniel in chapter 1, were taken with Daniel into exile during the Babylonian exile. Now, it is at the request of Daniel that these three young men are also raised to a point of power and position, because now they have won Nebuchadnezzar's favor. So Daniel is in the court of the king, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are made as overlords over the province of Babylon. And this obviously makes a lot of people jealous. So when King Nebuchadnezzar builds a statue and he asks everyone to worship it, these three Jewish exiles say no. And they are very emphatic about it. They say, even if the Lord whom we serve does not save us, we will still not bow down and worship this statue. Now, I'm going to take 6 reflections today, and I want to say this straight away. Please don't use these reflections to be applicable to your neighbor or someone in your church. These are reflections for you, for your spiritual life, though I'm sure you may think they are applicable to many other people. So the first reflection I want to make is this. That these three young men refuse to allow King Nebuchadnezzar, with all his power, his position, to bully them into submission. Bullies always use muscle power, or they manage to use their position, but always use fear very effectively. And you'll find bullies from your playground to the corridors of power. They are all over the place. And remember this, that a bully might beat you to the ground. A bully might use his political clout or her political clout to throw you into a prison. But one thing all bullies know, that they can destroy your body, but they cannot destroy your soul. And that is why they try, even in a sense, to destroy your spirit, to break you down. Break your body, break your spirit. Our soul belongs to God. That's the first reflection. Nebuchadnezzar was clearly a bully. He tried to bully Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It didn't work. It didn't succeed. Now, the second reflection is that these three young men refuse to apostatize. What's that? It's a fancy word for simply saying that we quit on God in favor of another God. And many people do this. I've seen politicians do this. I've seen married people who are married into another faith. I'm not saying all of them do it, but I've seen them do it. And very often we do this to please. I mean, I can understand if you are pushed into a corner and forced to apostatize out of fear to another God. But I don't understand it when you do it to please human beings, to make others happy so that they may be pleased. You offer sacrifice to their gods. This is something that is clearly sinful, and we need to state it. State it without making an apology for the faith that we profess. I often say this. The first commandment is, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods. We have a living God. I am, he says, not I was or I could be. We have a living God. And if we cannot get beyond the first commandment and obey it, how are we going to get through the remaining 9? The next thing that we learn, the third reflection that I want to make, is that the 3 young men teach us a valuable lesson in answering the dictator or any other dictator like Nebuchadnezzar was. Now, you see, their love for God was governed by a very deeply spiritual principle. And that principle is simply this: the God we serve does not need to be served by us. Many of us serve God so that God in our need will come and serve us. It's almost like we have a you scratch my back and I scratch your back relationship with God, or we treat God, as we would say in India, like a banya. Okay, I give you money, you give me something in return. And Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego live this principle. We are not serving you, God, so that in our need we may be served. The fourth reflection I'd like to make with you is that these were the young men that Nebuchadnezzar had appointed over the affairs of Babylon. This was no small position. This was arguably a very important position in what had emerged at that point of time as the superpower nation when compared to the other nations of the ancient Near East. Now that they stood up for their beliefs, we are told that the expression of Nebuchadnezzar was very different. Very often in life, the people that we are with love us as long as we agree with their views, and we very effectively do it. But when you disagree with people, especially on moral grounds, they begin to get upset with us and they want us out of their life. Nebuchadnezzar wanted Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego to agree with his religious views. They turned him down. They turned down power and position with it. And many saints in this world have done this. Many saints who are not even declared saints, but are saints in the heart of God. The fifth reflection I want to make is this, that God came through for these 3 young men. You know, in the history of salvation, many young men and women have died in fiery furnaces, in gallows, in prisons, in the arena in Rome, maybe even in the prison of Mumbai. And I'm thinking very clearly of Father Stan Swami. And we have to learn to accept this, that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of Christianity or the fertilizer of Christianity. Martyrdom is an integral part of Christian life. And finally, and with this I want to end this reflection, the pagan king in the end, Nebuchadnezzar, blesses the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. We know that the 3 walked into the fiery furnace. The king sees a 4th person. He attributes it to be an angel of God, and he brings the 3 out. He realizes he has failed and he worships Yahweh. So he blesses the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, which is a very clear lesson to us. You see, our witness makes the world bow down to Christ, not our cowardice, our witness. So the question is, are we willing to suffer martyrdom? And the answer must be, especially in the times that we are living in, must be an emphatic yes, or else we are shallow Christians. You know, ironically, the cardinals wear the color red not because they are princes of the church. I hope they are not called this anymore. They used to be called this as princes of the church. The cardinals wear red because red is the color of blood, and they are the first ones who are called to shed their blood in the defense of the church and in the defense of our faith. And so martyrdom is going to be an integral part of our lives. We must be willing, also like St. Peter, to say, I'm not worthy to be martyred like the Lord, so crucify me upside down. I hope you like this teaching. Please share it with your friends, and I'll see you again tomorrow, as I usually do. Please leave your comments, subscribe to this channel, and bye for now.